breaking news out of Georgia tonight, and I have to warn you, it is disturbing news, and this is a developing story. 7 people have been shot and killed in Georgia tonight in the Atlanta metro area. At least 2 more people have been injured in what appear to be connected attacks. NBC's Atlanta affiliate has just confirmed that police do have a suspect in custody now in connection with these shootings. That confirmation coming just in the past few minutes. Police say the shootings occurred at 3 different locations, again, all in the Atlanta metro area. All 3 locations are massage parlors. A suspected shooter first entered a business called Young's Asian Massage Parlor, which is in Cherokee County, about 45 minutes outside of Atlanta. Police say the shooter at that location shot and killed 3 people there at that massage parlor and injured 2 others. Then, in a different location, less than an hour later, 4 more people shot and killed at 2 additional massage parlors in Atlanta. Again, so this is Metro Atlanta, Cherokee County, and Atlanta proper. Now, officials have not said whether they think these shootings at 3 places were connected, but police did note tonight that the shootings took place at 3 spas, 3 massage parlors where the majority of the employees are Asian. Police say all 4 victims who were shot and killed at the 2nd and 3rd locations appeared to be Asian women. Now, police say they have not yet identified a suspect or a motive. But again, NBC's affiliate in Atlanta is confirming just within the past few minutes that a suspect is in custody in connection with these crimes. It is important, of course, to note here as context that this breaking news comes tonight at a time when hate crimes targeting Asian Americans has skyrocketed, not just in the last year, but specifically within the past few weeks. That can't be far from our minds as we absorb this developing story out of Atlanta. Joining us now on the phone is NBC News' Atlanta-based correspondent Blayne Alexander, who's following this story closely tonight. Blayne, let me first ask you, I know this is a developing and fluid story. Did I say anything there that's wrong? Is there anything that you can update us on in terms of current reporting?
Nothing wrong. I do have one quick update, though, for you, Rachel, and it's an unfortunate one to bring to you. It does appear that there has been an additional casualty. We've just gotten an update from the Cherokee County captain who's been updating us throughout the evening, and he says that one of the injured individuals has passed. So now that does look like that brings the death toll, unfortunately, to 8 people in this combination of 3 shootings. So you laid it out there pretty well. I mean, what we're looking at are 3 different locations. It seems that most of this unfolded over the course of about an hour or so. So the first one was about 45 minutes, maybe an hour north of Atlanta. That's where that first shooting took place, and that's where officials say that they do have the suspect in custody. As you mentioned, we're learning a little bit more about him. He's a 21-year-old. His name is Robert Aaron Long. He was taken into custody after officials, were able to release a surveillance photo of him and were able to capture him in a different county. My understanding is that they did a sort of pit maneuver on him and essentially were able to take him into custody as he was fleeing and on the road. He was taken into custody without incident. That's according to the captain up there in Cherokee County. But then you came back down to Metro Atlanta, kind of the North Atlanta area, the Buckhead area, for those who are familiar with this area, and it unfolded at 2 different massage parlors, which were across the street from one another. Atlanta police told me in a statement earlier that they had actually gotten calls for one of them. They were told that it was a robbery in progress. They were responding to a robbery in progress. And while they were there, they got the calls for the shots fired at a parlor across the street. So those 2 different scenes are something that they're looking at. Now, of course, the big question that we've been asking, are they connected? Are the 2 in the different counties connected? They say that it's too early to say whether they're connected. It's too early whether to determine if this was any sort of a hate crime or anything like that, but they say that they are certainly in touch with officials in the other counties to determine what, if anything, connected these incidents overnight. Here, Rachel.
Blayne, do you know, and have authorities been able to confirm that the 3 different sites, these spas or day spas or massage parlors that were targeted, were all essentially at least marketed as Asian spas? Obviously, we're thinking about this in terms of whether or not somebody may have specifically been targeting Asian Americans for these multiple shootings. Were these all spas that were marketed as Asian locations?
In Cherokee County, in the first shooting, that is certainly the case. The other two, still getting information on those, but we do know that that's the case in the Cherokee County shooting, and that's something that the public information officer, the captain up there, spoke about when he was giving his first and initial briefing. And now, again, he wouldn't go so far as to say whether it was targeted for that reason, but did make note of that when he was giving his first briefing, Rachel.
And Blaine, you mentioned that there is a 21-year-old man, Robert Aaron Long, who is said now to be in custody. Do we know anything about why police targeted him, why they were able to release a photo of him, why they apprehended him? Do we know about why they believe he is connected to these crimes?
From what we understand, they just had that surveillance video. We do understand that there were some witnesses inside the business at the time. Police, of course, are trying to talk to them, trying to get any information from them. But there were some people who were able to see what happened. Now, the 911 calls, we understand, came from two people who were actually inside the building that were not shot. And were not injured, fortunately. They're the ones who made the calls. Police are still trying to talk to them to figure out what exactly they know. They've not really said information to us, but it's certainly possible that information could have come from those who witnessed this, at least in part, Rachel.
Blaine Alexander, NBC News Atlanta-based correspondent, following this story closely as it continues to develop. Blaine, I have a feeling we'll be back with you sooner rather than later on this story. Thank you for joining us on short notice tonight. Again, this is news that we are following as a developing story tonight. The bottom line is that what we're looking at here is, we believe, 8 dead, additional people injured, shootings at 3 different massage parlors or day spas in the Atlanta area, one in Cherokee County, as Blaine described, about 45 minutes or an hour north of Atlanta, the other 2 in Atlanta proper. Police do have a suspect in custody now. Recently now, 21-year-old man who's in custody in conjunction with these attacks, but we don't know more than that. This is the photo that we've got of the alleged suspect, or at least the person who is in custody tonight. We don't know more about this, but obviously part of what is front of mind here is the surge in anti-Asian American hate crimes in multiple states in recent days, especially because we know at least the first of these massage parlors targeted tonight was marketed as an Asian day spa, an Asian massage parlor. And we do know that we have been told that multiple of the deceased victims, several of the deceased victims tonight, are Asian women. Disturbing story that is continuing to develop tonight in the Atlanta area. We will let you know more as we learn more. All right. On Friday night show here, you may remember us reporting on a... Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.